good in this game, you're going to be playing somebody who, if they're victorious, that's where they're going. If we would win, I mean, that would really screw things up, I'm guessing. It might be kind of funny, actually. But anyway.
I mean, Kirk Ferentz trying to be a comedian, wants to be funny and spoil the college football playoff, create a little chaos. But here's the real question, is how could you be expected to win that football game, to pull off any type of upset, if Vegas has their first and second half point totals at half a point?
Yeah. The only reason is Iowa has pulled this off before. I know the pain. They beat us in 2016. They had no business beating us. You're right. You got to play the game. You got to play the game. But it's a long shot. What's going on up there, bro?
I'm trying to think of what type of team they were in 2016.
Much better offense.
Yeah.
Much better offense. Much better offense. Much better offensive line.
I've watched the way that Michigan has played this year, and I'm not exactly sure.
I don't know how they scored.
How Iowa's going to move the football.
Pick six, special teams. Oh, but Cooper DeJean isn't there.
Yeah, dude. Maybe a safety. Who knows?
Maybe.
All right. This is Red Corner, Blue Corner, right here on Stadium. Glad you're joining us today. That is Jake Butt, the Michigan Wolverine, All-American tight end, Mackey Award winner. All of the things, the king of the Wolverines.
This is Joshua Perry, man. I just want to say, you've done a phenomenal job covering this game, this past weekend. I've enjoyed our conversations. I seriously have, and I enjoy our conversations.
I think I might have been a little bit too emotional on some of it.
As is life, So have I at times, right?
But I think when you're emotional, sometimes like you either you don't think at all or you think very critically.
But you've already thought that through. Yeah, I know that. I know that.
Spent a lot of time on it. Spent a lot of time on it. And we want to welcome all of you in here to this show. We want you to follow us on Instagram at @redcorner_Blue Corner. Also scan that QR code. You could submit some content, and we love when we can have you guys as a part of this. But we have another batch of CFP rankings. And because of the game, there is a major shift at the top. Michigan bumps up to number 2. I think I had a case for number 1. That's neither here nor there. Ohio State slides down to 6. Oregon is in their way, sitting at number 5.
Yeah.
It feels like Michigan's going to get the winner of the Pac-12 here.
Yeah.
In the CFP. That would be Washington, could be Oregon. If they had to choose which one of those teams they would like to play, who do you think?
I think you and I see this. You've called this for a while now, that even though Washington beat Oregon earlier in the year, I think we both agree that Oregon's probably the better football team. So I'm going to say Washington, and here's a few reasons. Let's call it, both have great quarterbacks, both have great playmakers, both can do some things on offense, both will scare you. Here's the defensive numbers.
Go ahead.
What has hurt Michigan? Let's talk about the Penn State game, an elite pass rush. Okay, so Oregon is 26th in sacks this year. Washington, 111. Okay, so then how about the rush defense? Because we know that's Michigan's bread and butter. Oregon, 7th best rush defense right now in college football. Washington is 40. So fine, but definitely not a top 10 rushing defense. To me, it just feels like, and I also think Washington has been through an absolute gauntlet of a season here. Michigan should just say, hey, I don't care who we play. I think they've earned the right to just say, you guys should be worried about playing us. We're not worried about playing you. But if you had to have the pick, I think Michigan would probably choose Washington.
I would say so. For all the reasons that you talked about with the defense, I think Michigan would be able to run the football on Washington pretty effectively. They would be able to drop back, as you mentioned, because the tackles would not be under stress. Although I do think, and I can't remember the young man's name, Washington does have an edge rusher that I really like. Where's a single digit up there? I wish I could remember his name right now. Here's the thing that I do think is intriguing about Washington, just as it would pertain to a matchup, is we saw a Maryland team that found a way to throw the football around the field on Michigan. Then the next week in the Big House, we saw an Ohio State team with a quarterback that I do not think has a ton of plus attributes. He's got a lot of good weapons around him, but he's limited in many ways. They still threw that thing around the yard pretty solidly. Right? And I look at Washington as constructed. You've got obviously Michael Penix Jr., Roma Dunze. You could make an argument maybe the best receiver Michigan would see. Marvin Harrison Jr. certainly up there, but I think it's splitting hairs with those guys. They've got a couple of other receivers that have done a really good job this year. I think from an offensive standpoint, you're looking at a Washington team that's going to be able to stress just about anybody if they can get the matchups that they like with their weapons and Michael Penix Jr. can stay clean, which we do know that for Michigan, a lot of the way that they have been able to get pressure is when they blitz.
Yeah. How about, so as we talk about this, we just saw the playoff rankings. Ohio State obviously does not have a game this weekend. JP, does Ohio State still have a path to the playoffs?
I would paint this picture as probably the only way. You would need Georgia to win. You would need Michigan to win. You would need Washington to win, so Oregon takes that second loss, they're out of the way. Then you would need Texas to take a loss to Oklahoma State. So you'd be looking at Oregon with 2 losses, you'd be looking at Texas with 2 losses, and you'd be looking at an Alabama team with 2 losses. The other thing that would have to happen, Florida State's got to be out of the picture too. They would need to lose to Louisville. And I think if you can get like 5 different things to happen around you, you can make a case that they would be in. But I would also like to make the case that in the last year of the 4-team playoff and the 2 teams in Ohio State and Michigan meeting undefeated in the game, I don't think Ohio State needs to be in regardless any of those things happen.
Yeah, real simply, basically, you need all the teams that are currently undefeated. So Georgia, Michigan, Washington, they need to all win this weekend. And then you need Florida State as the only current undefeated team to lose. Outside of that, all the teams with 1 loss playing this weekend, as you mentioned, Oregon, Bama, Texas, they all would need to lose, and then Ohio State's got a long shot. This is one of the better, kind of dramatic endings to the season at this point.
Sure.
Talk about parity. This has been a fun year. Now, Vegas seems to think the Buckeyes are out of it. At plus 8,000, Ohio State is nowhere near the top of the board. So it seems like their season is over, minus a bowl game. So to conduct the red corner, blue corner, just to conduct the red corner's end of the year review, I'm going to hand it over to the broadcaster of the year, Sam Brief.
Thank you, Jake. All right, now it's time for a little exit interview. Sam Brief with Joshua Perry. Josh, we got to talk shop, all right? We got few things to discuss, and I see the agitated look on your face. It really says it all, because my first question of our performance review here, I understand you were egregiously late to a meeting today. On the day of your exit interview, nonetheless, do you feel that's acceptable behavior?
Well, I'd like to clarify what exactly happened this morning. Okay. Getting the group chat where everybody communicates is our normal process there. And Jake Butt had some other things to do because he's a busy man and decided that he wanted to move the meeting up to 8:45. I was a little out of pocket at that moment, and so I couldn't make that meeting. So I said, hey, listen, I'll stop by with our producer, Dennis, does a great job on this show. 9:30, I'll stop by. Did not make it by 9:30, but certainly did get the rundown meeting in. Look at, here we are.
Okay, we're here, but still, you were late on the day of your performance review.
Yeah, I'm not the only person that's ever been late, but we can keep it moving here. I won't throw my colleagues under the bus.
Let's keep reviewing here. Okay, Josh, I want to go big picture now. How would you assess your performance in the red corner this year?
I think generally, overall good performance out of the red corner. I will say that there were some moments where I was flustered, maybe some moments where I wasn't my best self, and I need to work on controlling what I can control, because the one thing I do know is that the team representing the red corner doesn't always do that for me. But outside of that, had a ton of fun. Think there was a lot of growth that went on here.
A lot of growth, but none of us are perfect. That being said, did you say anything at all that you regret?
Well, I'd have to look back in the files, of course. Maybe need my lawyer here before I answer that question straight up, so I'll defer to that.
Okay, so we're bringing the legal system into question here in a performance review.
I just want to make sure that I'm fully protected.
Okay. Okay. Josh is protected. But now I want to move on to something a fan said that got my gears and our team's gears turning a little bit. You've had a recent rant on another program, and it got the attention of one of our viewers who said, dang, Josh, you really get it, and you need to be on the Ohio State University coaching staff. You can be a great motivator of young men. So, you got any aspirations of coaching?
I've thought about it. I am a married man. I've got a child on the way. Would not be good for the work-life balance in the family, first and foremost. I also love what I do here. I think this is a wonderful job. I would love to do this as long as I possibly can. And so I give advice through the television medium, and I think that works.
This is red corner, blue corner. Joshua Perry and Jake Butt. So we got to talk a bit about your competition, about Jake Butt.
Sure.
Do you feel that Jake, in the blue corner, outmatched you this year?
I wouldn't say outmatched. I think it was pretty evenly matched, but Jake is a 10 out of 10 and something that I'm not. I have to aspire to get to Jake's level. I thought conversation was always good. I thought he brought great energy. The analogies he loves to use, my goodness, I don't know where he gets those from. Would not have rather done this show for the football season with anybody else out there. Jake Butt is the most premium Wolverine I've ever met.
We have to save that clip and just put it on Jake Butt's resume.
We should
because
put it on
gold.
a T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Jake Butt, most premium Wolverine I've ever met.
The king of analogies, Jake Butt. But we're here with Josh Perry, finishing up an exit interview right now. And I want to look forward now because it's important to set goals for the future. So what's a goal that you have for next year and moving forward in red corner, blue corner?
Yeah, I mean, I think our goal should be to improve upon the momentum that we've built this year. I think that we have great fans, and I'm glad everybody was here to join us this season, really get involved in the chat because you sparked off a lot of the content. I think that there are so many great storylines, and especially in the expanding landscape of the Big Ten, we got to lean into that. And maybe Jake and I have to spend a little bit of this offseason brushing up on some of the West Coast schools that are coming in. Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA. Want to make sure that we've got everything covered for the West Coast editions.
Yeah, your performance review.
Not so fast, Sam. Not so fast. Joshua's team isn't the only one that's done until the postseason. So, JP, I think it's time for Sam's end-of-year review.
All right, let's do this.
Let's kick this one off
didn't
with an
sign
easy
up for
one. Hey, Sam, let's just go to Wisconsin. Is there anything you would change about Wisconsin season?
Oh, there's a lot I would change about Wisconsin season. Holy moly. Well, I mean, the expectations were so high. Luke Fickell coming in, you know, we're going to have a renaissance of Badger football, and it didn't work out. It didn't work out. Now, that being said, the Badgers did extend their 23-year bowl streak.
Sure.
So I wouldn't change too much. That's about the only thing I would keep, though. I'd change just about everything else.
Okay.
Two thumbs down.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a tough year there, but we got to look at Northwestern, who had a better year than many people anticipated. A big year for them coming up. They go on the road to Washington. They get Ohio State at home, on the road in Ann Arbor against Michigan. What are your expectations for Northwestern next year?
Well, Northwestern expectations got to be sky high, gentlemen. Performance review for David Braun and the Cats. I mean, the Big Ten Coach of the Year says it all, right? That is 2 thumbs up. Northwestern team that some thought could go 0-12, 1-11, just like they did last year. They go 7-5, and they're going to a bowl game. Huge thumbs up. My expectations are high for the Cats. I think they go bowling back-to-back years, start to generate some momentum under David Braun.
Love that.
Okay, let's take it a little bit off the field here. And here's my question for you. Do you have any suggestions about how to improve the viewer experience for our viewers here at Red Corner, Blue Corner?
I think we got to get a little live interaction with the two of you. We got the king of the Wolverines here. We got the king of the Buckeyes here. 2 amazing voices I've had the pleasure of working with covering Big Ten football. Let's get some face-to-face interaction. I'll hop in. I'll, block and tackle for you both and let you guys make a play.
We should be blocking and tackling.
That's what we really should be doing. But
You want a 5'8", 130-pound offensive lineman? Sign me up.
Oh, man, but this has been an absolute pleasure, Sam. Breathe.
Yeah, man.
You aced your exit
Done a great
interview.
job, man.
Not
Great
so
job.
sure about how I did
Yeah.
on mine, and we still got to grill Jake, but always appreciate you playing along.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, Sam. Coming up, it was a disappointing year for the Gophers, to say the least. Could a change be coming to Minnesota? Check it out on the other side of the break. All right, welcome back. The Minnesota Gophers ended the year with 4 straight losses. And the people of the North are talking, JP, and they want PJ Fleck out. Look at all these tweets. Look at this action.
I know.
Anything stand out?
Yeah, one person said, PJ Fleck coaches like octogenarians walk downstairs like the 80-year-olds. It's
Ouch.
crazy
Ouch.
out here. There's another tweet that's getting ready to pop up. PJ, a.k.a. Poor Job Fleck.
Dang.
It's pretty pointed.
Dang. Well, that's our jumping off point here.
Yeah.
How hot is the seat for PJ Fleck?
It's heating up. It's got to be pretty hot right now. And the way that the year ended, I think, would bother a ton of people. You did not beat your rival, and I know that he is like completely on top of all the rivalries that Minnesota has. So I know that stings for the fan base. It seems like the program is going backwards. The post Tanner Morgan, Mo Ibrahim years. So they got to get that figured out. And then you start to see what happened yesterday. Who's going to play quarterback?
Yeah.
Right?
Why did that happen?
There are a lot of dudes. Do you want to know why, or do you want the PJ telling us why?
Oh, I want to know why.
Because PJ would tell us why.
NIL, right?
Yeah, he'd say, oh, we don't have enough money to retain our roster to keep our roster together.
does.
I am not trying to throw Ethan Kaliakmanis under the bus.
Yeah.
I do not know how in demand he would have been in the portal.
Yeah.
I think this has a lot to do with the expectation of what people want out of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Maybe the difficulty of the cultural expectations of PJ Fleck. It's a it's a tough place to be at from the level of energy in all of the rowing and the different things. Like, I think you have to be a certain type of person to really embrace being in PJ's building.
Yeah, the expectations hurt because, look, PJ he's got a good track record. The program has won a lot of games. I'll just remind you, how about Bo Pelini at Nebraska?
Boy.
Right? Okay. If you are asking for this, I remember a time when Michigan fans wanted Jim Harbaugh gone.
Yeah.
Who's the guy then? Is that a clear improvement? If not, be a little bit patient. But as far as the NIL goes for PJ, I just think, my opinion, my advice, no one's got enough NIL money, man.
Right.
It's, just be strong in it, right?
It's also a house of
say
cards, too. I think the people that are saying they have a lot of money really don't have the money that
No,
they
they
say
don't.
they
Bluff.
have. All right, let's get to some other news. Marvin Harrison Jr. been named Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. I think this was a fairly obvious choice, but can you make an argument for someone else?
Maybe you
to
could
win
be
this?
Blake, right? You could say Blake potentially,
I just
JJ
feel like the
potentially,
volume
right?
wasn't there for Blake. I mean, I'm not. This is my favorite Michigan hate stat. I mean, I think he scored like 2 or 3 of his touchdowns from outside the 5-yard line this year.
Yeah. But a meaningful piece nonetheless to Michigan's offense. The thing about stats in college football, we always say it, they're extremely, extremely deceiving. It applies for Marvin Harrison Jr.'s potential Heisman campaign. But you look at, how about Johnny Newton? We talked about him as the defensive player of the year yesterday. The film says a different story from the stats because you can affect the game greatly, even without having stats. I mean, Marvin said it after the game. He's never seen coverages like what he saw from Michigan. I think I know you've watched the tape. I watched the tape. Some of the ways they got to bracket and double team him were extremely exotic. He's affecting the game much more, even times when he's not getting targeted on the field.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of trying to evaluate who the player of the year should be. If you are a defensive coaching staff and you're game planning an offense and you have to devote an inordinate amount of time to one player, significantly more than you do for any other player, any other team, I think you could make a strong argument that that guy is the player of the year, and that's what Marv has been for a lot of people. Yeah.
I think coaches should be more public about that. I'd like to know that, hey, you get 20 hours a week per the NCAA. Hey, 6 of those hours were allocated to one guy. That's usually a good indicator.
It'd also be interesting to hear the players that don't actually scare the other coaches too, right? Like that would give us a good window into how people are thinking back there. But we're going to take our final break right here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. But coming up, you know what time it is. Got the conference clash on the other side. And guess what? We're talking playoffs, baby. Could this be the peak of the 4-team era? I mean, it's the last year. It might as well be. We'll discuss when we return right here on Stadium. back for the conference clash right here on Red Corner, Blue Corner, bringing in T-Bob Hebert and AJ McCarron. Listen, I know we have to talk about the college football playoff rankings and, the unbeatens at the top. Before we get to all of that, T-Bob and Jake made me and AJ sit here and listen to them talk about chess like a bunch of nerds during the commercial break. You guys want to explain yourselves here?
Yeah, I know you Buckeyes didn't go to go play school, right? But T-Bob, we like to get educated a little bit,
Yeah,
Chess.
yeah. I mean, you may not know about LSU's academic reputation, but it's pretty sterling, okay? Read a book. Go look it up. No, I am one of the people that got hooked after Queen's Gambit a few years ago. But it's weird because my passions wax and wane. I'll go deep into something, but for like a week, 2 months, 3 months. I've played chess every day since I got hooked for 3 years straight.
Wow.
I mean, it is the most perfect game of all time. It's infinitely entertaining. There's a reason why it has stood at the test of time. I would argue that it is divine in nature, like a holy text. It is the perfect game. And the problem is when you get a couple people that are passionate about it, you can never get a chance to. So you just eat up all the oxygen like I'm doing right now. You got to be careful with chess. It gets its hooks in you.
Here's a fun fact about chess, okay?
Here you go.
After 3 moves in chess, 3 moves for each person, there is more possible potential outcomes in the game than there are atoms in the universe.
Exponential geometric growth, boys. Exponential geometric growth. Look it up. Alabama, Ohio State. Learn to read.
First off, don't play me like that. I got through my school in about 3 years. I'm good to go here. AJ, we'll let the nerds be nerds. You and I, we'll talk football here. Bring back that full screen.
I graduated college in 3 years, spent my last 2 learning how to play basketball and baseball and golf.
There you go.
Nice.
Online classes.
Now that's
He enjoyed the experience the right way. Can we bring back the full screen now so me and AJ can talk some football here? We got the new release of the CFP rankings. Georgia sitting there at number 1, obviously Michigan 2, Washington 3, Florida State 4. The unbeaten teams in college football all there in the bracket. So my biggest question here, is this actually the playoff we would want to see? Would we actually want to see just the unbeatens in the college football playoff? AJ, I'll start with you.
No, I mean, me personally, no. Listen, I don't think Florida State is a top 4 team in the country. I would take Oregon and Ohio State over Florida State right now. So, listen, does the Washington and Oregon situation solve itself? Yes. So one's going to be knocked out completely. But you can't tell me that you'd love to see the Georgia Bulldogs facing off in the first round versus Florida State and a backup quarterback. That would be an absolute beatdown.
I agree. T-Bob?
Okay, so I agree with what I would want to see, right? Like, I agree that's what I would want to see. But ultimately, and welcome into Rivals Down South. Here it is, crossing over, now the SEC time. But look, those are the best matchups on paper and everything, but I've been thinking long and hard about this. And at the end of the day, I don't want to fault teams for a flawed system, right? Like, I understand the eye test tells us these are like that yes, like I would rather see Oregon in there. I would rather see Alabama in there. I'd rather see Texas in there. That's what the eye test tells us. But the eye test can be flawed. I mean, who would have thought that Michigan was going to lose to TCU last year? And it doesn't mean that the eye test isn't probably right. Think back to Washington, Oregon this year. When Oregon goes for it on 4th down, like 4th and 3, and they don't get it on 3rd or 4th, 80% of their plays this season had gained 3 yards or more. The math was on their side. But at the end of the day, these are kids with variables. These are kids that are chaotic. And, like, upsets can happen. And so this idea of trusting my own pride and hubris, like, no, change the system, which a 12-team playoff will do, and all these teams will get in, and we'll hash it up with football. But here, as we sit here on 4 teams, after all of our debate, I have finally landed on if Florida State goes undefeated, put them in. And if it comes down to Texas and Alabama, put Texas in because they won the head-to-head. That's where I'm at. I'm not engaging in any opinion. No opinion. Just football, baby.
Can I jump in
no.
on this flawed system thing, though? I have a real issue with that because I think that when you say leaving Florida State out as an undefeated conference champ would be a flaw in the system or whatever the case is, like, to me, the flaw in the logic is that winning the ACC this year would actually be impressive. Right? Like, I don't think all conference championships are created equally. I don't think 13-0 looks the same for every single team either. Like, the idea of you are what your record is, to me in college football, that's not the case. Every 13-0 doesn't look the same to me. Like, winning the Big Ten this year, because it's still the last year of the divisions, winning the conference championship, that was played last week in Ann Arbor. We all know that to be the case, right? So, like, that data point to me, oh, well, Michigan is a Power 5 conference champ. They beat Iowa, who can't move the damn ball. Like, it's just, I feel like we have to rely on metrics to a certain degree. And of course, winning matters in the sport. But I also think we have to assume that people are intelligent enough to understand when a team is actually better than another. And we have to be able to pull that trigger when it's time.
I'm with Josh, and sorry not to cut Jake off, but I got to talk about this because I'm with them 100%, because you can't say the top two teams in the SEC, Alabama and Georgia, right now couldn't step out on the field and beat and go in and probably play in the ACC championship and win it easily, possibly. Like, I mean, both of those teams are considerably better than Florida State is right now. So, like, you can't always put so much emphasis on just being a conference champion, like Josh is saying, because it's based off of how weak and how strong is their conference. And the ACC is down this year. I mean, bad. So, I don't understand the whole just taking them because they're the conference champion, and it doesn't make sense to me.
The context of how they look matters to me as well, though. You know, like, I think if Florida State can come into this game and blow them out and look phenomenal, like, I can sit here. I'm reserving the right to make my final judgment when the final whistle blows this past weekend. How do they look? On the flip side, too, you know, I look at that Texas-Bama matchup, and I do understand that teams evolve. I absolutely understand that. That's part of why I'm saying Florida State won't make it even if they are undefeated but don't look great. But for Texas to go on the road and beat Bama, I can't, like, that. If all else is equal, I'm going to lean towards Texas because they went into Bama's backyard and handled business.
Right, and I agree with that to some extent. But, I mean, we've also talked about, you know, in the committee's eyes, how much better does a team get throughout the season? And that Bama team is not the same team that they are now, right, from week 2. And for, you know, Florida State to play Louisville, if they don't beat Louisville hands down, Louisville just lost to a really bad Kentucky team. I mean, like, really bad. And I understand it's a rivalry game, but Kentucky is horrible.
They lost to Pitt earlier this year.
Yeah, earlier
Pitt won 3
games. But Kentucky in the SEC has been struggling for a while now.
Part of what makes football the greatest sport is because of the finite amount of opportunities you have. Every game matters, every quarter matters, every play matters. Yes, I understand Bama has evolved. Absolutely. I might even say I think Bama would beat them today. Bama could go on the road to Texas and handle business. But we erode that part that makes football so valuable. Scarcity drives value. I have to say that Texas beating them in their backyard,
we speak
that matters.
Out of both sides of our mouth, though. Yeah. Like, there's no reason that we should value a September data point in December if we also preach that the reason we play all of the games is so we can aggregate all of the information about each of the teams so we can make the best informed decision. Because that was a data point after 2 weeks. And then we've had a bunch of weeks since then to be able to make a decision. And if the committee thinks it's close at all, then 100% they should go with Texas because Texas has the head-to-head. But if you come out of this weekend and you don't think it's particularly close, make the right decision on this one.
Well, see, but this is why I'm feeling a bit triggered because, like, again, you're probably right, but it still is hypothetical at the end of the day. The eye test is based in hubris and pride and belief,
Right.
but it's not based on the actual play. And here's the deal with Oregon. Like, and this is where, and maybe I'm just overall triggered because AJ, I'm getting some 2011 vibes out of this Oregon-Washington setup, okay? Washington has gone undefeated in the regular season, okay? They beat the top 5 finishers in the Pac-12. They played an objectively better schedule than Oregon. They got 2 more quad ones win than Oregon, and yet none of this matters if Oregon wins the rematch. If Oregon wins the rematch and both teams are 1-1, Oregon goes to the Final Four, Washington's left at home. Like, why is Oregon getting so much love right now? It's the eye test. But what about the resume? Why is Oregon above Texas or Alabama? Right now, you look at quad 1 wins, Alabama 5, Texas 5, Oregon 3. Bowl eligible wins against bowl eligible opponents, Alabama 7, Texas 7, Oregon 5. Wins versus Power 5 teams with winning records, Alabama 5, Texas 4, Oregon 3, okay? But the eye test has Oregon at 5, and that's got me angry. And so any eye test conversations have officially gotten thrown out for me now because we've gone too damn far with it.
Right, but I think, you know, the Washington-Oregon thing handles itself, right? Like, that doesn't bother
But it's
me
not.
because
It makes me mad that Washington doesn't get that other opportunity that Oregon's getting. Like, Oregon's suffering no consequences for losing to Washington.
I think the committee hamstrung themselves a little bit when they initially started putting these rankings together because they would have had to try to come up with all of the reasons that you gave to have Oregon drop behind those teams as the schedule started to go on. And quite frankly, I'm not exactly sure they would have been equipped to do that. They're not as eloquent as you are. So I think you can be right here. And I also think that in the case of Alabama, who's sitting there at, number 8 right now, they're jumping into the top 4 if they win this weekend. For Texas, who's sitting there at number 7, a couple things go their way, they're jumping into that top 4, and it's the same thing with Oregon. And the flip side of that is, if Georgia wins, Bama ain't getting in. If Washington wins, Oregon ain't getting in. Like, all the stuff handles itself by the end of this weekend.
Right, exactly. And you know, if Bama does win, they're beating a team that the committee has said has been 1 or 2 all season long.
Yep.
That's why they're in over Texas.
Yep.
Texas beating a team that's ranked 20th in the country. Bama automatically is in. You can't keep them out if they beat the number 1 team in the country. It's not going to happen.
I agree. The crime here would be, is there a scenario? Okay, so Michigan wins, they're in. FSU wins, they're in. I'm looking for the scenario in which Bama could get left out in favor of Oregon. I guess I'm just, at the end of the day, I have Oregon-Washington problems. I've got Oregon, Bama problems. I've got Oregon, Texas problems. And I've even got problems because Bo Nix is about to steal a Heisman from Jaden Daniels. So I just got a lot of problems.
That is a crime.
With the Oregon.
By the way.
The only thing that I don't dislike about Oregon is I love Dan Lanning's tattoo and his wife's cleavage being on his love handle, and the fact that they met at Outback Steakhouse makes me so happy, and he's so likable. But everything else I got problems with right now.
Listen, before we get off, I got a scenario. What if Bama beats Georgia? Okay, it's a close game, but Florida State struggles against Louisville. Do you put Georgia and Bama in there? Is it 2 SEC teams, and then you leave Florida State out because they struggle against a?
Let's hold on real quick. Let's bring up Generic Mike's comment here because I think this comes into play. He says, I think AJ would put a 4-loss Bama in the CFP if they won their final 8 games. AJ, you got a response?
Well, not who the hell said that?
Generic Mike.
Generic Mike.
Hey, tell Generic Mike to just keep watching the show and stop tweeting in.
Okay, this is one, but this is all another reason why I am looking forward to the 12-team playoff. And it's not to say that it won't come with drawbacks. Like, we'll get regular season matchups that mean less, and you might have years where Alabama and Georgia play 3 times, or Ohio State and Michigan do. But guess what? I like watching those games.
Let me tell you
Like,
something.
I'm not mad about them playing 3 times. Like, I'm down for that.
Let me tell you something I'm not looking forward to is Michigan this weekend in the 12-team playoff era deciding that only backups are going to play, and Iowa winning that football game and them being in because of auto bids. Auto bids do not belong in this thing. That is what I'm not looking forward to. That's going to throw a wrench into everything. You just
I
wait.
agree.
Michigan's in regardless, win or loss this weekend. And Iowa wins that football game and they get in the 12-team playoff because they get an auto bid. Is the Big Ten champ? Absolutely not.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, you got to retain some value for the conference championship at that point.
Oh,
but it's a fair point. Either way, red corner, blue corner, thank you so much. This was very fun. All right, when we get back here on Rivals Down South, look, we got to talk about going streaking. We got to talk about the SEC championship in Atlanta. This is Kirby Smart's Darth Vader moment. Next, here on Rivals Down South.
When I used to ask my sons who they were playing with on the Madden game, and they would say, I'm playing with the Ravens, and I would say, why are you playing with the Ravens? And they would say, they got Lamar Jackson, and nobody can tackle him. Well, this guy's a bigger physical version of that. He's playing in a different speed than everybody else when you watch it, and that's the way the Madden game was for him.
Yeah, and look, man, welcome back to Rivals Down South, youtube.com/WatchState if you want to get involved. I mean, I lived through 2004 Madden Michael Vick, a player that damn near broke the game back in the day. I felt like video game enthusiasts were a bit ahead of the curve when it came to the quarterback revolution, knowing what a cheat code it was if you had a quarterback that could run. AJ, real quick on the actual comp made there. I don't think Kirby's being too literal, but you've seen Lamar Jackson up and close. How do you think somebody like Jalen Milroe and their games compare to one another?
Yeah, come on now. Listen, and there's no disrespect to Jalen, but Lamar's a way better passer than what Jalen is. Listen, I think, and that's not knocking Jalen, right? I mean, he's gotten better as the years gone on. But from a drop back passing standpoint, no, he's still nowhere near what Lamar is. I think
go ahead.
Kirby's playing a little chess here, making comments about him running, right? It's almost like, can he get into Jalen's head about, hey, you're just a runner? Kind of what was brought up, but before the Texas game is, hey, this guy's just a runner, and then he kind of tried to stay in the pocket too long. So I wouldn't put it past Kirby making some chess moves here before the game is even played.
Bro, and that is so crazy to me, because this is Kirby Smart's moment here. I've talked on this show before, but like Kirby Smart, the most amazing thing that Kirby Smart did is he built this Georgia empire while being surrounded not just by one, but by two different empires that were in their prime. He had Alabama on one side, he even had Clemson on the other, and yet he somehow still found a way to get to this moment where he's on the edge of doing something that his old master never did. And I cannot help. And I don't care about the characters. Don't go to the characters, because I know I always call Nick Saban the Emperor and everything. Look at the characters. Think about the lines themselves. But if you think back to A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, 1977, when Vader finally faces down his old master, Obi-Wan, what does he say to him? The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. He tells him, your powers are weak, old man. And he tells him, you should not have come back. That is everything that is going down this Saturday, dude. And you're telling me that that's the level of subterfuge that Kirby is going to? I mean, that's what's on the line. If he wins, he has officially supplanted Nick Saban, right? But if he loses, well, then no, all of a sudden the deaths of Saban's overrated, the deaths of Alabama is overrated, and he's right there neck and neck with Georgia once again.
100%. Listen, I'm telling you, Kirby is a smart, and he's got people that are in that program that are smart, right? Other coaches, analysts, quality control people, like GAs, it doesn't matter. He's got people that are doing their homework, right? And I guarantee you at some point there was a word, they have looked up articles, they have read every comment that, press interview, anything that Jalen's been involved in. And hey, did any of the stuff that came out that week, did it affect how he played possibly on Saturday? What? And I'm telling you, like, I just know I've been in these types of programs to where, like, they will find anything and everything to just leak something or say something, make a comment. And he's also playing the game, right? Like, he's trying to build up Alabama to be some special powerhouse like team this year, right? So just in case they were to lose, or in the case they do win, it makes them look better, right? It makes Georgia look better or not as weak if they do lose in the SEC championship to Alabama. So he's hoping to play the game a little bit to say, hey, if we do lose, both of us should be in there, right? Like, so Kirby's, like I said, he's playing chess, and y'all better believe it.
Well, and so when you have an engine analyze a chess game, like a computer engine, right? It can work to a certain depth. And the deeper you go, the more insight you gain. So you're telling me that that's the depth in which Kirby came up under Nick Saban? Like, is that what, because I know we talked about in the past, but like Coach Saban hiring like a sports psychologist to study your team before the game and kind of being like, you need to attack Tyron, blah, 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 blah. You're saying that like that thing about going through the papers, looking for comments, how it maybe relates to play, like that's the level of minutia that Nick Saban's been engaging in during this dynasty?
Listen, I don't know if what he's been engaging in. All I know is no matter who you play for, right, at whatever level, you're always trying to find out things about other teams, right? And I'm not saying Michigan style, leaving a paper trail, right? But like when we played, LSU in 2011, you had Jordan Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
As quarterback, and then you had who was the other quarterback? at that time.
Jarrett Lee, Jordan Jefferson, and Jay Lee. Jarrett Lee.
Yeah. So we don't know if it's true, but we got word that Lee was no longer eligible because he stopped going to class going into that national championship game. And that Les Miles was not going to come out and say why he couldn't play. Lee was going to dress out. And so if we knew that he was ineligible because once he lost his job to Jordan after we played y'all the first time at Bama, that if he wasn't eligible, there's no reason to prepare for him. So just prepare for Jordan and the triple option, right? So I'm just saying there's ways to get information, right? There's people at that university that might not like the starting quarterback, that might not like the head coach at that team, might be an Alabama fan, might be a Georgia fan, right? So they're in that circle of the opposing team, and they're leaking out information. It happens. It doesn't matter. High school, college, pros, like it's going to happen.
I am having my mind blown in more ways than one. Well, because like I've never heard that confirmed or not either, but I've heard that same rumor. And now I feel like it's probably true. Like, oh my God, dude. All right. When we get back here on Rivals Down South, keep it locked. YouTube.com/Watch Stadium. We're going to talk a little bit about back in some Would You Rather Wednesday. Keep it locked. More Rivals on the next spot. Side of the podcast. Welcome back to Rivals Down South, youtube.com/Watch Stadium. AJ McCarron, you've won championships. Carson Beck is trying to live up to the championship shadow of Stetson Bennett. He's been great up to this point, but like this is nut cutting time, right? What's the key to getting your mentals right for a stage like this at that position?
Well, I think one thing that helps him is it basically being a home game for him, right? Like, I mean, he's played in big games and, at Georgia this year. He's not going to be on the road technically. Like, yes, it's supposed to be split 50-50 when it comes to tickets. It's not going to be. It's going to be favored in Georgia's way. So I think that part of it helps you. So you're going to have the crowd a little into your favor. But also, like, your defense is playing so well this year. You're running the ball great. Like, play within yourself and take care of the football. Listen, a game like this comes down to the turnover battle, right? If you can be positive in the turnover battle and win that, you probably win the ball game. Okay, so especially if you watch, as Georgia, if you watch the Alabama and Auburn thing, I mean, Alabama got 2 interceptions from Peyton Thorne, and it was still came down to the last second play. So take care of the football, and you're going to give yourself a chance to win.
Well, and so with what you've seen out of Beck and Milroe thus far this year, who do you think is better suited to what you're just saying, to playing within themselves, not doing too much, and allowing their team to kind of win?
I think Carson has shown it a little bit more, and that's not knocking Jalen. I think Jalen still has some room to grow from a passer standpoint, like a pure passer drop back. So I think it could get tough for Bama at some point.
There you go. We'll continue to break it down all week long. AJ, thank you so much, man. Best of luck with NFL stuff. We're going to keep breaking down championship. We can hear our rivals down south, youtube.com/WatchStadium.